It Out Loud, a podcast by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
This week's podcast episode is called Honoring Out Loud, and it's with Bree and B. Hey, Bree, thanks for joining.
Hello. Of course, happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So today, just like our title says, we're going to be discussing, and it's always a hard and sensitive topic around how do we truly honor our babies, right?
Yeah.
And I would even say too, this is very different for everybody. We're just going to be discussing different ways that, we have done it, other survivors we've heard have done it. And also, just so then people can pave their own way and find their own way with it. Right.
Yeah, it's so different for everybody. And even if you haven't, there's a guilt around, and we'll probably jump into this, but if you haven't done anything yet and you have this guilt of like, I want to, but I haven't done it yet, or you're not ready to do it yet. Everyone's at different phases of that. And they have different ways of expressing and honoring. So yeah, we'll definitely jump into that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And before we jumped on here in the podcast, I was expressing to Bree, there's one piece that I still haven't done yet. And it's because it's overwhelming for me. And I think it's normal and I can't beat myself up about it. But I do beat myself up. Of course, it's natural. But talking about it in safe spaces like our support groups or, with other survivors, it makes me feel like it's okay.
Yeah. And I think that validation from others too, that, we all have these ideas, and I know you were expressing your idea and stuff, and you're just not there yet. You're not ready to take that step and make it happen. And that's okay. It will come when it comes, and you just have to give yourself some grace with that, because it's such a personal thing. And I think a lot of the hesitation comes from, we know it's going to stir up emotions when we prepare this space or whatever it is that you want to do to honor your baby. And it can, knowing it's going to stir up emotion, it kind of makes you put it off because you don't want to deal with it. So I think that's completely normal.
Agreed. And then just making sure that you're doing it right? Like, am I actually honoring them in the way that I see it? Is it as perfect as I envision it? All of that, it can go around all of it. But especially when I was so new into the journey of, learning what life is and what life looks like now without Brooke, it was hard then to even consider or think about how was I going to honor her in the right way.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's, gosh, it's your baby, right? And you
right.
How do you honor somebody you love so much? Like, I just feel like there's no, we want to make it so perfect because they were so perfect. And it's hard to come up with something so amazing to reflect how amazing they are. And it's a tricky one. It's so hard. And I would love to hear from listeners their ideas, because I think sometimes we are stagnant in our thoughts and we don't have the brain power to come up with good ideas. But hearing other survivors, and I know some have mentioned them in our support groups, ideas that they have done, and just hearing those might spark an idea that we're like, oh my gosh, that would be really cool if we did that.
Oh yeah. And I think that is how I really built what I have done. And it was through other survivors. And so the first thing is sharing her story. For me, that's a way that I'm honoring her, because I'm sharing her a piece of me with other survivors, because you don't know who it's going to help, who it's going to impact, and also just feel that connection to another survivor, which is so important, that unity, because we can feel.
So that's a great way to honor a baby, like to talk about them, because I think when we think about honoring our babies, we look at the tangible. I think we automatically go to something tangible. Like we want to have something we can touch or something we can look at, but really just speaking their names and talking about them and sharing your story is a very powerful and impactful way to honor your baby. And it's not always the thing that people think about as a way to honor their child. So I love that. I love that you mentioned that, because to me, honestly, like that's the thing we do the most, my husband and I. We have little things here and there, but we don't have like a space in our house, or we don't have, these tangible things necessarily. We have a couple, like I said, but the way that we honor them the most is by talking about them. We talk about them with our kids, with our family. I have gone to speaking engagements and shared my story, and just honoring them in that way, and using what I went through to and their lives, using their lives to help other people. That is my way of honoring. So I think it's important for people to remember that it doesn't always have to be some elaborate, tangible thing. It can just simply be sharing your story, speaking their names, and talking about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that piece too of saying their name out loud, right? And
Yeah.
honoring them. Yes, and talking about them. All of those things, because you never know who then in the community will have somebody, a loved one or themselves, that will go through it. And it's like, I know I can turn to Bree. I know I can go to, Bernice. I know I can go here
Yeah.
and there. And oh yeah, they volunteer at Chasing the Rainbows, like those kind of things, like that organization, with daily support, like they'll know immediately like where they can go to find that connection. And it also then is it could be somebody else's survival guide. For
Yeah.
me, it was other survivors who I really needed to rely heavily on to, one, understand what I was going through and these thoughts I was having. But
Right.
second, also be in a community of people who didn't judge me, had the empathy, understood exactly where I was at any given time, even if their journey is different and their story is different, but them at least relating and allowing me to feel heard, seen, and validated, which is always
Yeah.
just so important, instead of shutting me down or telling me like, don't think that way, or, because, the ones that love us, who haven't been through this, don't want to see us suffering. So they think by telling us, no, don't think that way. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't this. Well,
Yeah.
no, I still need to feel these guilt, these blame, these shames, and all that goes with our trauma and grief.
Yeah.
So
Nope. I totally agree with you. It definitely, sharing your story, sharing about your babies,
yeah.
though challenging and difficult
Yes.
sometimes, because I
Yes.
know, like, I did a speaking engagement at my church, about actually just about a year ago,
Yeah.
and I stood up there and I cried, and I like was
Yeah.
vulnerable, and like it's hard to relive and talk about, but it was impactful. And just the amount of people that have come to me and, this happened to me, or have had it happen since, and I've been able to help, come alongside them and walk them through, and having that person to, and you could be that person for somebody else, and just come alongside them and listen, like you said, like all the things that we really need. And it's hard for somebody to understand who hasn't gone through it,
Yeah.
what somebody walking this journey actually needs. But to have that person is amazing.
And also to cry and those things,
Mm,
in public in front of people, that's a normal reaction to grief. That is a normal
yeah.
reaction to us living a life without our baby. And it's so interesting because survivors will always embrace one another when they're crying, when they're talking about their baby, even years later,
Yep.
because we all understand that pain. We've been there, we know it. And it's interesting because like our society always wants to shut it down, like, oh, she's crying, like, don't ever bring up, Landon's name again, or don't ever talk about Emma, or don't talk
Yeah.
about Brooke, and those kind of things. And it's like, no, like, this is okay. Like, I can still talk through it.
Yep.
And it's all just a natural reaction.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm 8 and 10 years. Emma's been 8 years, Landon's been 10 years, and I still stood up there, and even still,
yeah,
there's times on our podcast I say stuff that like I get
yes,
choked up about, because as soon as you talk about it, it takes you right back. And now it's different. So like I'm not right back to stage one, phase one of grief, like it
right,
doesn't take me there. It takes me back to the moment and how I felt in that moment,
yes.
and the memories I have of that moment. And that's what gets me up, teary eyed or whatever. But yeah, it's so powerful to just,
It
speak
really
their
is.
name, share your story, and cry if you need to cry. It's okay.
Yeah. And like we said, you just never know who's going to need to hear that story that day or hear that inspiration because they're going through something tough and they're like, wow, if she got through that, them got through that, I can get through this,
Absolutely.
But also, I feel like it does take away the power of guilt, shame, and blame when we share our thoughts, feelings out loud and saying them instead of stuffing them down. And
Yeah.
even though it's like cleansing us because we're crying, we're like getting our story out, we're telling it, and it's exhausting. But afterwards, I always feel so much better because
It's
it's
like
like you
it's like
really,
euphoric almost. Like,
yeah,
I agree. Like, I remember the one speaking engagement I referred to. I was upset and crying, and I got off that stage, and it was like this, like, weight lifted off of me, because it was just the power of sharing the story and getting those emotions off your chest, and like the shame
mhm,
and the guilt that I felt, and I verbalized it. And like, there's
yes,
something to be said about, you know, feeling those things, and you shove them down and shove them down, but then to like speak them out loud. And we talked about that. You spoke about this a little bit last week, but like speaking it out loud to somebody who you feel safe with is
yeah,
like the most powerful healing thing you can do. Don't hold it
exactly.
in.
Exactly. And those thoughts and feelings, we've had or we could see how someone has had them, along the way, but it cuts that pain in half each time.
Absolutely.
Each time that I verbalize it, say it to someone else who gets it in a safe space, like you said, Bria, it's the most important thing, with a community of survivors. And it's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Oh, wow. Okay. And then I'll say it again somewhere else and I'll say it again and again. And it's like each time that I'm like, okay, now I feel like I've processed it. And
Yes,
it's
and that
not
is
just
part of
because, yes,
that's the thing. It's
right.
part of the process. Like that's really
Yeah.
what it is. It's like in order to um take those steps forward in the healing journey, it's part of the process. You have to speak
Yes.
it, you have to say it, you have to feel the feels
Yes.
in order to get, along your path.
Yeah, and I think, as fixers and things like that, like we always want to jump in and help somebody, but really it is them feeling it. And we talked about that last time. And feeling that pain and having to walk that journey and finding what works for them and how to cope and how to share and how to communicate and all of those things because it's all things I didn't know what to ask for or how to handle until we came up against it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I totally agree.
absolutely. Yeah. So, an interesting thing with honoring too, and I did this, and actually I'll show it in the video. We took Brooke's footprints. I know some survivors don't have footprints and things like that. I know some have used ultrasound images and stuff, and we got a necklace made with Brooke's feet prints in them. And
Oh,
we also got an ornament made with her feet prints in them. Actually, it was the nurse from the NICU, one of them, who did the footprints. And that was a way for us too to honor her, because we didn't have much left besides her footprints, a couple pictures, and her ashes. So it was like,
yeah.
how can I utilize those feet prints?
Well,
So that was
and I
really big
love
for us.
it. Yeah, that's really cool because it's always around you. I know you wear it all the
Right.
time, and
Like right at my
um,
heart. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I have a necklace that my cousin bought me with Landon's name on it and date
Oh,
of birth and stuff. And then when I had Emma, a couple years later, I got a necklace. My aunt got me a necklace that is an angel wing, and it
oh,
says, your wings were ready, but my heart was not. And then it
oh,
has like two little bars attached to it that have Landon's full name, his date of birth, Emma's full name, and her date of birth. So those
oh.
are I wear those around my neck all the time too. And we have a sign in our bedroom that says, "If your love alone could have spared you, if my love alone could have spared you, you would have lived forever." And then it has
Yeah.
Emma's name and her date of birth, and so there's definitely like these things
Yeah.
are nice to have around, simply because it's a constant reminder that they're with you, and you feel like you're honoring them, which you
The
are.
connection.
The
Yes.
connection, yes, yes.
So important because, as mom, as birthing persons, as parents, we all just want to feel that connection to our baby. And how can we still feel a connection if they're not here with us, right?
Yeah.
And wherever you believe they are, it's just like, how can you still be connected in
Yeah.
some way and feel like almost feel them like having a piece of her here. It's just like, okay, I mean, obviously we would do anything to have our babes back,
Right.
not an option. So, what is that? And this is it for, as one
Yeah.
way. What's interesting is, and this kind of leads into our next one. I'm actually going to take my watch off quick. I'm going to share this in the video because, you can find these videos on YouTube, but I also have her feet prints in a heart on my
Oh,
wrist.
I
And
love
then
that.
also I did do a full sleeve tattoo, and I'm not saying tattoos are for everybody, not at all. Some people want to get tattoos to honor their, loved ones, some don't, and it's all personal decision and whatever you think. But I did her, how it all started was doing her birth flowers, and then I have a cardinal on my shoulder, and
Hmm.
it's like, and then it leads from a branch into the flowers, and then I added my other two children's birth flowers in there as well.
Oh,
But it was a way for me, though, to have her always by my side. Like, you can never, like, scrub this off, like, this isn't coming off, it's permanent now. But and then I have her in Roman numerals, because, Latin's a dead language. I have her, birthdays and her, anniversary date on there, and it's over my pulse. And I did that same with the footprints are over my pulse. And it's just like, because she's a piece of my heart, and
yeah.
she's no longer here. So, I mean,
I
tattoos
love
are
that.
personal, but yeah, so, it's interesting, when I first got a full sleeve, I never realized how judgy people can be, with full sleeves, and I actually kind of like, and I was in corporate America for I don't know how many years, so, seeing a corporate business, business suit of woman, then taking it off, and then bam, it's like,
Full
I
sleeve.
yeah, it's like shocking to some people, but now, like, it's, become a part of who I am, and it
Yeah.
gives me that opportunity to talk about her. Any opportunity I can have, the necklace, if someone notices the necklace with her feet prints, if somebody notices my tattoo, it's like, they're like, "Oh, like, beautiful tattoo," and maybe they mean it, maybe they don't, or they just, like, I caught them staring at it, who knows? But then the second I go to, this is for our daughter who is no longer here, and then it gives me that opportunity, and then it's interesting because how people react to it is different, a lot different.
Yes. Yeah, I know. So speaking of tattoos, I don't have any, but I have an idea for one, and
Right.
it's been in my brain for about 8 years. I just trying to figure out where to put it, but it's very meaningful. And I actually think I mentioned last week that I'm going through cancer treatments, breast cancer treatments, and I have a port on my left side right
Right.
above my heart. And my husband said to me recently, he's like, "Why don't you put that tattoo over your scar when you get your port removed?" Because it's right above my heart. And what I
Right.
want to get is it's a branch, and there's two big birds sitting on it
Oh,
for my husband and I. There's two little birds sitting on it for my two living daughters, and then there's going to be six birds flying off in like off
oh,
the
I love
branch to
that.
represent the 4 early miscarriages and 2 stillbirths that we experienced. So and like you, it's one of those things that it's a it opens dialogue, and I think
It
that's
does.
really important. So like some people, you may share what it means, and they're like, "Oh, okay, like sorry I asked," like
Yeah.
they don't want to hear it. But then
Yeah.
other people, like there's just like even with my necklace that I wear, how many people have said, "Oh my gosh, I experienced a loss too. I'm so
I
sorry."
know.
And then it's like suddenly we're talking about it, and like that's
Yes.
honestly like that's the whole goal here is of Cry It Out Loud, is like let's talk about it. And like anything, we're wearing the necklace, we have the tattoos to honor our babies, but it's also to open the dialogue and to
Yes.
have people say, "Oh, what is that? That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, what does
Right.
that mean?" And like let's just open that conversation, and you just never know where that can lead. So I think that's great.
Well, and it gives someone else the opportunity then to talk about their baby too to you,
Yep.
that maybe they haven't. And having survivors come out that are 30, 40 years out from their loss and they never had that opportunity because of how our society is and they've had to stuff it. And that's, the old school practice and, it's changing, but it's still not where it needs to be, but it's like gives them that opportunity. But exactly right. Like that's why we do like I am a baby loss survivor t-shirts through Chasing the Rainbows, because we're trying to get people like they can see I lost a baby, like come up and talk to me. Like let's all unite. Like let's come together. Because this is, for most of us a lifelong grieving process. Or, instead of stuffing it down, let's just keep getting it out there. Like let's keep talking through it, because it's just with as common as it is, it's so sad that until you go through it, do you really find out, who else has. So
yeah, that's so true.
right. You're right. And so in addition to, things that I wear on my body or have permanently now and instilled on my body, I don't know about you, Bree, but I put, and this was a recommendation by my therapist at the time, put all of her belongings into a beautiful wood chest. And it was like one centralized place, because I had them scattered everywhere, because I knew where they were too, which is so weird. Like I knew some of her stuff was in a desk, and then I knew some of her stuff was up in her nursery bedroom, and like, but then I centralized it all, put it all in there. And not that I'm trying to close her away, but then it gives me the opportunity when I'm ready or I'm in the right mindset that I can get it out and look at everything.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. We have boxes for Landon and Emma as well. I actually got these really nice at a craft store, like these really nice baby chest looking boxes, and I put all their stuff in there. And right, like a part of me feels guilty that both their stuff is like in a box in my closet.
Right.
I feel like I'm stuffing them away, but that's certainly not the intention. It's because I do periodically go in, look through, like my girls and I have gone through it together, and like, oh my gosh, look at this. Oh, it has this little blood stain on it, just like we go through the stuff. But I think having it all in a location for you to, when ready, open and look through. I think that's a beautiful way to honor them as well.
Yeah. Well, and you alluded to it earlier, like some of the items that we have are very personal to us, right? Like I don't want to share them with people, and not that, because I just don't want them displayed. I don't want them to get ruined. I don't want to see something happen to them. And that's all we have left. So I also do it for like protection purposes. Like,
that's a great point.
There. Yeah. And I just need to keep it there. So like our dog doesn't get, because heaven forbid, like our dog eats a blanket, which she does a lot. She eats a lot of blankets in our house. And I mean, we can like our fleece blankets, if you come over, they're holy, it's just like you accept it, and we just roll with it, and it aerates you. But anyway, so it's like if she did something like that, to Brooke's blankets, oh my gosh, she'd be for free on the side of the road. No, I'm kidding. I would feel, I would be very upset, and it would stir up a lot of emotions that just don't need to happen.
Well, almost guilty that you didn't take better care of her stuff. Like, and that's a great point too. Like and I think that's, you're saying what I think in my mind I was thinking, but I hadn't thought of it, is that like they're in a box in the closet a lot of time, mostly for protection and safety. They're up high. Right. Nobody can touch them or get them down except my husband and I. Like,
And I don't want to be upset too with one of our children wanting to get out a stuffed animal or a blanket and wanting to use it either. Like because it is reserved, that those items that, we picked out and put in this chest were for Brooke because they were either with her in the NICU, or they just were stuff that we received from our baby shower or when we were pregnant with her, that we just like honor her with, and we associate her with those things. So yeah, not even necessarily like she didn't really wear clothes in the NICU, but we have a couple items of clothing in there that were very special when we picked them out for her, so it's all those things. But what's interesting is too, like the memorial inside and outside the home, this is the part, and we said this at the beginning, like there's pieces that we still feel a little like guilty about, and that we haven't done. And one of them is these memorial areas. So we're coming up on 3 years here in March 16th. And I still have not finalized or even attempted to find the right pieces to make these little areas in our home and outside. And it's not just for me, it's for, our older son and my husband. And so we can have this space with honoring her and, with Brooke's things. But I just have not gotten to that point because it feels overwhelming every time I try to do it. And I try to remember gentleness with myself. And maybe
Yeah.
it's just not meant to be. And that's okay too. But, you know, it's something that I do feel guilty about it. And it sneaks up every now and then.
Well, and you and I have had this conversation before, and I think,
Yeah.
you want so badly to make this a perfect space
Yes.
to honor Brooke,
Yeah.
and to the ideas and the logistics to make that perfect, quote unquote,
Right.
is very difficult because it will never be perfect enough, right? Like, and I think
Exactly.
it gets too overwhelming when you want to make it so perfect because you want to honor your perfect child, and
Yes.
like, so you end up not doing anything because it's too overwhelming to try to make that happen.
Yeah, it's crippling. It really is.
Yeah.
And what inspires me though is talking to other survivors in support group and
Yeah.
talking to ones that are even years further than me and still haven't done theirs, because it normalizes it because of course, I'm having these feelings and it all makes sense and can be rationalized. But then I also get inspired by ones who are just taking that leap or have done it. And I'm like, wow, like, it's so beautiful to
Yeah.
hear how others are doing it. And one day I'll have it and I'll be talking about it on the podcast. But for today, I'm just not there yet. And that's okay 3 years
It's
later.
totally okay. It's
Yeah.
totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I can decide on something like my tattoo. Like, isn't
Yeah.
it just something like, oh, that works in your mind? But,
Yeah.
yeah, and then, every year for us, like, dates are huge, like holidays, which we did a whole holiday podcast on, and their special days, like their birthday, their anniversaries, anything, their expected delivery date, all of that. For us, like, we celebrate her birthday more than we do her anniversary. And we've chosen to do that because I want to honor her life if I can. Because every time March 16th, when that hits, it's a hard day, but February 6th, which is just a little bit of a week away. We try to do a birthday cake. We do a birthday cake every year. And then that gives our son the opportunity to talk about her, also my husband and I, and share that day,
Yeah.
but I know people do balloon releases on the birthdays. And they choose to do that. And then with the holidays and special events now, we actually light a candle, to start the day. And that allows everybody to know that, like, we're welcoming, like, Brooke in, like, for everybody to talk, not depending on what you believe and what you don't believe, like, just welcoming, like, if anybody who wants to share thoughts or feelings or to know that, like, we are addressing the elephant in the room. Like, we're
Yeah.
still grieving. We still include her in holidays and stuff. I'm still constantly thinking about her during the
Yeah.
holidays. So you not mentioning her is actually hurting me more because, I'm already there and thinking of her.
For
So
sure.
let's just put it out there,
Yep.
So they're like two
Yeah.
big things too.
No, I think that's a great thing. And it gives the opportunity for you guys to address the elephant in the room, like you said, but then also to open the dialogue. And hey, it's okay if you guys want to take a second and say something about her or like talk about her. Like, we're not, no, we're not here to like ignore the situation or what
Yeah.
happened or whatever. So I think sometimes people just need permission, because they
Yeah.
don't. And I respect that, because I think some people, if it does come up, they do get hurt and they don't want to talk about it. But then
Yeah.
other people, it's healing for them to talk about it. So
Yeah.
it's a way to like, I'll give people the
Opportunity.
the opportunity to speak about your
Yeah.
child, and know that it's not going to hurt you, but rather it's something you want to talk about.
And let's just, like, to that point is, some holidays we do it and some we don't because
Yeah.
some holidays, like, I'm just not, and it's for each individual and it's however you're feeling or however you want to come. Grief is so weird. It's not linear. It's all over the place. So,
So
like,
true.
if you want, it's not that I still don't want people to talk about her, but if I'm just not feeling in the right headspace to do it, or, I
Yeah.
need to protect myself because I'm not feeling like it's a safe space, or like I'm feeling some sort of way with myself, it's like, okay, that's okay. I'll honor her in a different way that year, or I'll do something different.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because if you're comfortable talking about your child today, that doesn't mean tomorrow's situation will be the same. You may not feel comfortable tomorrow. So, right. And that's where I think family and friends get like confused and like, what do I do? How do I handle this? Because it changes, and that's okay. And that's totally normal. So kind of leading the show and guiding the the feelings for the day is very helpful for those that are around us.
Absolutely. And, one of the best pieces of advice and something that I followed since, mentoring, survivors and mediating support group and stuff like that, is really understanding that, one, everybody's journey is different. It's going to look different on any given moment of any given day. One survivor says something does not mean that it's a candid statement for all, of course not. But also too, it's letting them take the lead. Because one day they will believe something and the next they might not, but that's grief because it's all over the place. So it's just allowing them really just to be there to listen. And then wherever they're at that day, great, you meet them there. And you do that the through the journey, and every year it's gonna look different. And it's because we're living a life now without one of our children here or multiple children here. So
so
absolutely. True. And just to name a couple more, and this leads into the donating in their honor. This was something, my husband and I discussed. I waited a whole year to figure out what to do with some of Brooke's items. And it's not that I was like trying to be selfish and hold on to them. And I had a lot of guilt with that because I knew there was like needy people out there that could use toys, clothes, diapers, those kind of things. But I had to decide, okay, was I going to hold on to them because I wanted to keep these as a way of honoring and having these items because it's something that I felt in my heart was hers, or should I give it away? I didn't want to make emotional because like at some points I was like, I just want it all gone because I don't want to look at it or even be reminded. And then other days I was like, oh no, I want to keep everything because like this is all we have, and like really like hoarded it in there. So for us to even go through it, I gave myself like a year and a half, and then we started to wean things out. And that's just what we did.
Yeah, no, I think, and you have to do it on your timeline. And, did it make sense to keep the diapers in there? No, but it's like the practical, people who have an experience, it would say no. But for, those of us who have gone through it, yes, I want to keep those diapers, like it's a part of
them.
Yes. Her little Heiny was supposed to be in those diapers, like,
oh my gosh, yes. And it was that, it was like, it was wipes, it was all of it. It was like, I don't care. Like these were not supposed to ever be a consideration of donating. They should have been used and thrown out, but it's the mindset that they were specifically for her to use, and she's no longer here. So I'm just not ready to part with them, because that is like, you look at those items and you think baby, you think your baby, you think about changing diapers. And I know it's, a disgusting part, so sometimes of being a parent, but it's also things that make you a parent. Right. And so,
what so I like the idea of not just donating tangible items, but even like there's places that you can buy a brick in memorial of, or like there's different things you can donate to an organization in honor of, or whatever it may be. Like there's other ways to donate and to honor in that kind of way.
Right. And like holding a memorial fundraiser, if you want to do a fundraising event for a nonprofit, and like, honor your baby in that way. And it's all around, your baby. And, or like you said, every year for your birthday, like, holding a fundraiser on social media and those kind of things. Like there's so many creative ways that you can do it. And it doesn't just need to be items. It can be that you're leading the way, but it's really coming from others in the community and your loved ones who also want to memorialize your baby with you.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And, this episode, it's called Honoring Out Loud. This has been the name of our blog since we started Chasing the Rainbows, because we want to honor people's babies out loud. And just like our podcast Cried Out Loud, we want to make sure that you can share your story in a safe space. You can talk about your baby, even if you don't want to join our daily support groups, have a peer mentor, do any of the other services that are free that we're offering. this is another way that you can honor your baby, just by getting them out there, getting their name out there. And eventually we're going to have, with the survivor's permission, their baby's story on our website, and being able to share that, and seeing who it might help and who it might impact.
Yeah.
So, just feel free to visit chasingtherainbows.org and check it out, and feel free to submit whatever. But yeah, we're trying to gather those in just another way. But however, you're honoring your baby, like Bree said from the beginning, feel free to write in, tell us how you're honoring. If there's something that we didn't mention that you find helpful for other survivors, we would love to include it when people are asking for resources or asking us, for advice and things like that. It's just great that we can give it to the families, like, hey, this is just some examples, and you guys find your own way and own way of honoring them. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here, Bree. Of course, always. I appreciate you. And like I said, this is always a hard and sensitive topic. So we just hope that, from sharing what we have today, you're able to find your own way and whatever makes the most sense for you and your family. But thank you so much for tuning in. And please follow or subscribe to our podcast to help us reach as many survivors as we can, to unite and come all together. And we are always with you, fertility loss, pregnancy loss, and baby loss survivors.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.